you've done the unthinkable. You've gotten the ACLU to defend you. So already, kudos to you. We never thought we'd see the day. But this is deadly serious, and I realize this must have been very jarring for you. Before we get to the latest information on Microsoft and Google and Apple, which I definitely want to get to, let's just get the viewers and the listeners up to speed on the underlying saga, right? Like you're there, you're an investigative journalist. You use controversial tactics that have been used by the left for decades. It's fine when they do it, but not when you do it, to get people on camera saying things that may betray their public messaging. I mean, this is not a new approach to journalism. It's just one that they don't like when it's employed against their side. And you tell us what happened. You were contacted by a source saying that they had the grown daughter of Joe Biden's personal diary.
That's right, Megyn. This is an unbelievable story. And as I get started here, it's probably one of the biggest abridgments of freedom of the press in the history of the United States. I know it's hard to shock people these days, and nothing really surprises us. But this one really cuts to the heart of everything this country was founded on. We are investigative reporters. We run a nonprofit news organization called Project Veritas, and we often use undercover techniques to get information out of people, which has been used for 100 years. It's fallen out of favor in the last 20 years, mostly because it's expensive and difficult, and you get sued and you have to fend off the lawsuits. But yes, tipsters reached out to us in September of 2020, some 2 months before the presidential election with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And they said they had a copy of Ashley Biden's diary, the daughter of the president. Most people don't realize that Joe Biden has a daughter named Ashley.
Right.
We got this document. This was a document that I was fairly confident it was Joe Biden's daughter's diary, but I wasn't 100% certain. So we did things like we hired a handwriting expert. We tried to corroborate this document. And it turns out, Megyn, I guess we're better journalists than we thought we were, because it now appears to be authenticated because the FBI has gotten involved and raided my home. But at the time, I made the decision not to publish this document. There were some personal things in the diary, some comments about her father. I don't feel comfortable sharing those with you because I felt it was a cheap shot. I felt this was some things public eyes should not see. So even if I could authenticate that it was 100% hers, I could not corroborate that the things she wrote about her father actually happened. So I made the decision not to publish the document. I then reached out to President Biden for comment. We reached out. Our lawyer sent a letter to Ashley Biden's attorney, and that's when Ashley Biden's attorney said, "We're taking this to the Southern District of New York." That's, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's the federal jurisdiction, the Department of Justice in New York, where we're located in Westchester County, New York. And they referred to this, somehow this got to the FBI, the Department of Justice. And this is where things take an insane turn. A year later, suddenly my two journalistic colleagues get raided by the FBI with a battering ram. They go into my colleagues' houses at 6 a.m., take all types of computers and laptops. These are journalists, news gathering materials, confidential sources. This has never happened before in history for the execute a search warrant like this. And then now we find out this was last month, that they issued secret warrants to Microsoft Corporation and of course the news that we're breaking on your show today. So that's kind of an overview of what has happened, Megyn. Completely insane and unlawful, and a violation of the First Amendment.
It's shocking. I cannot imagine my own reaction if such a thing were to happen to me. And I saw all of my phones, my laptop, and all the the places where you store information from sources who call you with a story, especially in your business, because you're really breaking controversial stuff. I can't imagine the fear, the anger, the sense of frustration and betrayal by one's own government. And now it gets worse by the day, because I mentioned in the intro, the only reason you found out that the government went to Microsoft, so they executed these raids on your employees and then ultimately you. But the only reason you found out that separately they were basically spying on you through Microsoft is because Microsoft had a problem with the feds coming to them and demanding all of your information. And you tell me, but it looks to me like they were kind of trying to fight against the feds all along. And ultimately, the reason you found out is because they won the legal battle.
We use Microsoft Outlook for our emails. And this is before I get into this has been terrifying, Megyn. It's psychologically, they came to my house at 6 a.m. I was not fully clothed. They banged on the door with 10 or dozen agents. They had flashlights, they had vests, just like a movie, blue jackets. And they opened the door, handcuffed me, put me in the public hallway of my apartment building. I've got neighbors in an apartment building, and I was in my underwear. So I guess it was designed to humiliate me. And I would say for about a day or two, I was it shakes you up. I think you have to live through it to fully understand how absurdly terrifying this sort of thing is. And again, I'm an American journalist, and we work with a lot of people in the government. We have sources inside tech and the federal government and even the Department of Justice. We have sources inside these different organizations and we're one of the only places for these people to go, right? They can't go to the Washington Post and the New York Times because those organizations tend to work in alignment with the powers that be, right? They work in reciprocation with the powers that be. So they come to Project Veritas, and this is an insane chilling effect on the people that I work with because they obtained, Megyn, 200,000 emails from Microsoft. So then, fast forward a few months after the raid in January of this year, the FBI, after my home gets raided, goes back to Microsoft. The Department of Justice asks them to gag Microsoft, asks a magistrate judge in New York City to issue a gag order, a secret gag order, and say, you can't talk about this. Microsoft, to their credit, thankfully we have some honest people with integrity at Microsoft Corporation, drafts a motion opposing that gag. And when the feds see the draft of that motion, they back down in extraordinary fashion. And on March 10th or thereabouts, these gag orders become public. And it is insane. There's 9 different magistrate judges, or I think it was 6 or 9 judges. They went around and shopped this around and got them to stamp this secret order going back to January 2020, 8 months before I even found anything out about this diary. The sources didn't come to us until September. They got emails going back to January. It was unlawful. It was unconstitutional. It was a violation of the Privacy Protection Act. It was a violation of the Attorney General of the United States, that's Merrick Garland's order in July, saying that you can't do this to people who purport to be members of the news media. You can't issue secret warrants against journalists, obviously, because the whole point of journalism is to get people to trust you. And the U.S. attorneys, the federal prosecutors in New York, made the argument before the federal judge that James O'Keefe and Project Veritas are not journalists because they don't get permission, they don't get consent when they record people, which is an absurd argument, really, because the whole point of investigative journalism is to expose things that powerful people don't want exposed. So this case is become, Megyn, an absolute, it's so central now. And of course, the breaking news on your show here today is they didn't just do it to Microsoft. They went to our Gmail accounts, Google, and they went to Apple Computer and gagged them and extracted things, not just from my team, Megyn, but my security team as well. They went after our security guards, Megyn, in an apparent effort to intimidate us, humiliate us, and hurt us. This is insane. We've never seen anything like this, and that's saying something, honestly.
Yeah,
that's saying something.
And we're talking about a diary. I mean, it's not like James O'Keefe is part of a terrorist plot to blow up America. This is, you may or may not have gotten your hands on the president's daughter's diary. That's what we're talking about here. Have they suggested to you, James, in any way that, because the rule is, you, as a journalist, you can get stolen goods and you can publish the stolen goods. You just can't help orchestrate the theft. You know, you can even encourage the theft, but you can't orchestrate the theft or be a part of the theft. You can't be the thief and then profit off of the goods. Anyway, have they suggested to you that they believe you encouraged the theft or helped the theft or knew about the theft, alleged theft, I should say, of Ashley Biden's diary.
Right. The Supreme Court of the United States, in a case called Bartnicki v. Vopper, authored by John Paul Stevens, it says you can receive stolen information as a journalist. In fact, that's what journalists do every day,
all the time.
You just can't participate in the theft. And you could even, according to another case recently, this is in 2019, DNC versus a Russian Federation case. You can solicit stolen information. That's what journalists do. You just can't play a part in this. And we didn't. And there's no evidence to suggest that we did, Megyn. They have no evidence because it doesn't exist. This is a non-crime. It's insane. They've handed over all these emails. The feds assigned a special master, which is sort of like a special overseer. And the federal judge, this is Annalisa Torres in the Southern District of New York, federal judge, Article 3 judge, said that we're entitled to journalistic privileges. So the judge called us a journalist. I'm sure the FBI did not anticipate that. They thought they could just railroad us and silence me into submission. But there's no crimes here. There's no evidence of any crimes because none were committed. The sources had this diary, and we transported the diary to New York from where it was in Florida. And this is insane. The feds and the warrant, it said transportation of stolen documents across state lines, which is, again, an absurd insinuation because if it's a crime to transport documents across state lines, they'd have to charge every journalist in every newsroom in the country.
Right. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.